Welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you on. Sorry for the technical difficulties getting started here. We had a little glitch between our registration form and the Zoom registration, so we weren't getting the Zoom link sent out to everyone. It just went out, so we should have a few more joining us. We'll record this. We'll make sure we send it out to everybody that registered so that you don't miss what we got to talk about today. But we're grateful for those that could join us live, and we hope we can get some of your interaction and participation with us as we're having a discussion today just about getting started with this new school year, focusing on some things that we feel really strongly about here at Y-Tri that are this is a really special time of year to be focusing on how we start right and form connections with our students and how we can be intentional about how we create relationships with them. We know that to be one of the most important things we can do to build connection and to motivate, especially those difficult to reach kids. And, that's always been sort of our area of focus and probably our greatest expertise is student engagement and how we can motivate and reach some of those difficult to reach kids, which really is about reaching all kids. On our webinar today, my name is Hans Magleby. I am one of the founders of Y-Tri. I've got my co-founder and good friend Christian Moore on here. And then we also have Bruce Bushnell, who has been, as much of a founder as the two of us probably in Y-Tri as well. He's been involved with us from the very early stages. Christian's background is a clinical social worker. Bruce's background is in school counseling. He was a high school counselor and a junior high school counselor as well, I think, right?
Yes.
Middle school. And I asked both of these guys to come on and talk today about this topic of building student connections that last all year and starting out strong, because I've always looked at them as sort of my examples in this. This is one of the topics and one of the things that doesn't come as natural to me as it comes to these two guys. And I've always kind of looked at them as I've tried to build models around this that can help someone like me or anyone that's tuning in to be better at connecting with and reaching some of those difficult to reach kids. And so I wanted to ask them to come on and share some of their experience and their advice. And then this is going to be a webinar full of resources that we want to share with you that you can take and put into practice as you start your school year to hopefully have a good, positive beginning and really make a difference. Before we start, I wanted to share just a little video clip. This is one that we've used for years in training, and I love this. It's a story of a young man on the spectrum that has some challenges, and it's a remarkable story. As you watch it, I just want to challenge you to focus on how others are responding to what he accomplishes or what he does. Kind of pay attention to the reaction to his experience and what happens there. Can you hear that okay?
Greece Athena High School in Rochester, New York has a new, most unlikely hero, a special ed student by the name of Jason McElwain.
Let's keep it going.
Jason is the basketball team manager. For the past couple years, he's been assisting Coach Jim Johnson, helping with whatever the team needs.
And go! Get him motivated, hand out water, and just be enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic, to say the least. Despite being born with autism, Jason's father says his son has never had a problem expressing himself at basketball games.
I was always concerned that he might get a technical and they'd lose a game because he'd, start yelling or whatever.
Let's have a hard practice tomorrow, all hour and a half, and let's get ready for Arcadia. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 2.
Because he has been so devoted to the team, for the last game of the season, Coach Johnson decided to let Jason actually suit up. Not to play necessarily, just to let him feel what it's like to wear a jersey. At least that was the plan. But with 4 minutes to go in last week's game, Coach Johnson stood up and pointed to number 52, Jason McElwain. After years of fetching water and toweling off other people's sweat, Jason was actually in a game. His first shot was a 20-footer from the right baseline. Was it close? Did you almost make it?
I just airballed it.
I'm like, just dear God, please, let's just get him a basket.
His second shot missed too, but the third was a charm. A 3-point no-doubter. And Jason wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot.
If I wasn't there to witness it, I wouldn't have believed it, you know.
You caught fire. I just caught fire. I was hot as a pistol.
Jason ended up shooting 6 3-pointers, one right after the other. He had 20 points total, and each time a shot went in, his teammates and the crowd went a little crazier. His last basket, right at the buzzer, created total mayhem. Because he is autistic, Jason says he's used to feeling different, but never this different. Never this wonderful. Steve Hartman, CBS News, Rochester, New York.
Awesome. I love it. Couple of things that I'm wondering, and maybe if you in your webinar chat window there, if you can respond, what you saw in this video. First thing, if you notice, there was about 3 minutes left. Well, 4 minutes when he went in the game, when the coach called his name. And it took him probably a minute or so to actually, he took a couple of shots first that missed. And so it took him a little bit, probably at least close to a minute to get his first basket to go in. And how many points did he score, Bruce?
20.
20 points. So Bruce is an old high school basketball coach here. And I know he can hardly contain himself when he talks about this video because he loves it so much. And Bruce, how hard would it be for a player to score 20 points in 3 minutes?
20 points for a full game is great, but with 3 minutes, there's two things I think really stood out. His teammates, a lot of times when you put people in the game, they want to be on the scoreboard, so they're kind of selfish. But so his teammates were sensitive. This is his shining moment, and they got him the ball. And then I think I couldn't believe how excited his teammates were on the bench. Their vertical leap on the bench probably was higher than they've had all year long because they were excited for his success. And I like that. And that's something I think when we start developing great relationships, we can, in a classroom or a school, start creating that where we're excited for each other's success, that we're sensitive to each other's needs. But anyway, I love that. And I haven't seen it for a long time. It gave me goosebumps. I wanted to start coaching again.
I watched that, and I think the thing that I love most about that, even more, I mean, what he accomplished was incredible. And it was so incredible that he was nominated for an ESPY that year and won an ESPY award for an accomplishment in sports. But I think what's so powerful, and probably my favorite part of it, is before he even made a basket, just when the coach called him off the bench, the reaction that you saw in the crowd and the students across the way, they were going crazy. They were cheering for him. You couldn't tell, but they had pictures. It's kind of hard to see in the quality of this video, but they had pictures with his face cut out on them. So they came, like that tells you something, right? They knew a little bit about Jason. They knew that this was a big moment for him. They knew that he has some challenges that make him a little bit different than some of the other kids, but they were there and they were excited because they knew how important this moment was for him. They were there to cheer him on and support him. And like you said, Bruce, probably the starters had been pulled from the game already. They probably had the game in hand and they were on the bench. And when that first shot went in, they jumped so high. They were so supportive. His other teammates that were in the game with him were getting him the ball. The coach was even saying, "Oh, please, let's just get him a shot. We just want him to experience, a little bit of a feel for what it's like to get in a game after all that he had done and the appreciation that they had for him." To me, I watch that and I think there's a culture in this school where a student like Jason he's acknowledged, he's recognized, he is seen, and he's appreciated for who he is. And those students cared. I mean, the reaction was so sincere. They stormed the court at the end to throw him on their shoulders like they had just won the state championship. I mean, it was just the biggest celebration, you could probably imagine. I don't think you could have a more intense reaction in a high school sporting event than what you saw there as they witnessed him accomplish this amazing thing, and they were so happy for him. And so for me, I love that because I wish every school had a culture of caring where students, were all seen and understood and appreciated, especially students that, maybe, often overlooked, someone like Jason and some of his challenges. And so it's a really cool story.
I've seen that video several times too, Hans, but I had an insight watching it that I've never thought of before till today. And what's really interesting, and it's also a story of potential. And I think it's a beautiful thing that happened, no doubt. But this is the first time I've ever watched this video. I felt a little bit heartbroken about something. So you think about it. Bruce was sharing, what are the odds of him scoring 20 points, right? It's very rare. Yeah. So what was his real potential? I mean, could he have scored 6 points a game? Could he have scored 10 points a game if he was used every once in a while? And I think sometimes we take people, I myself was in special ed, we take people and we put them in a box and say, hey, he should only play the last 3 minutes of the game, maybe one time a year. But the fact is he scored 20 points. What was his potential to score 6 points or 8 points or, 20 points? And it just reminds me that we're talking about surrendering the one up. When you really surrender the one up relationship, you're also giving people an opportunity to maximize their potential. When you're in a safe environment, you can maximize your potential. And I think that kid could have averaged at least 10 points a game. I'm very upset with that.
You may be right.
He was at 10 points. That kid could have averaged 10 points and at least 3 rebounds. So I think the coach was a horrible coach. And he should have played him way more. All right, I'll be quiet. Sorry, I don't mean to be the Debbie Downer, but it hit me hard watching.
Advocate Christian getting on his soapbox. I like it. Just to kind of know who you're talking to here. Here is an old picture of the founders of Y-Tri. Christian, the future social worker. I was an art teacher and tech specialist. I worked in a video game industry and technology, and we got together. This is a picture of us. We were all high school buddies, so we go way back. And then Bruce, on here with us. Bruce is my brother-in-law. Our wives are sisters, and so the three of us here, I think, have been kind of, in many ways, the foundation of the Y-Tri program. For those of you that are familiar with Y-Tri and what we do, we have the Y-Tri program where we teach the skills of resilience. We have Resilience for Youth that teaches the sources of resilience. All of our focus of what we do is centered around resilience. And then we have this other program we call the Transformational Leader Toolkit, which is really a resource for administrators to try and help staff build capacity for creating positive teacher-student relationships. We have a book that we published called The Resilience Breakthrough. We have another book coming out soon that we're publishing in conjunction with Solution Tree called Resilience and Human Connection. And it's focusing on how our connections with others have such a huge factor in contributing to our ability to be resilient and our ability to endure trials and difficult things. And so it's interesting. In the last few months, we've been surveying our customers, and we've been kind of asking, what are some of your biggest challenges that we have that we're seeing around the country? What are the challenges that you're seeing in your schools? And we have a very large database from all of the interactions we have, both through customers and people that we connect with through our webinars and through conferences and speeches and presentations that we give all over the country. And so we send things out and ask questions of our database. It's over 90,000 educators now, and we've gotten some pretty significant responses back. And these are the top 5 things that we have seen as challenges facing your school from our customers. The number one thing was student mental health. So students struggling, with anxiety, depression, mental health issues that are having an impact on their ability to be ready to learn when they come to school and function. The The second challenge that was the most common was motivating the unmotivated student, how to reach those difficult to reach kids that, are just not engaged. They're not connecting. Looking at academic challenges, so just struggles with their academic classes. The number 4 thing was actually not related to students, but it was related to staff. The impact that a lot of the challenges that our students are having and how it's impacting staff's well-being and their stress, being able to manage it. And then number 5 was enhancing student resilience. Those were the top 5 challenges that we saw in our surveys this year that we were sending out. And we still continue to get people responding to those, but they're by a long margin, student mental health was number 1. It was quite a bit higher than the others. I don't know if Bruce and you and Christian, I don't know if you guys have seen those responses, but we've seen, as we've been working with schools all over the country, I've been traveling a lot. Christian's been traveling a lot. Our other trainers have been traveling, and we've seen, that there is just an epidemic of mental illness in children and teens. And there's a lot of reasons, I think, behind this. Technology is having a huge impact on it. We're definitely aware of that. Social isolation, experience of trauma, and then just youth not experiencing a lot of things in their childhood and early years that are helping them build resilience. They're missing out on opportunities to develop resilience, and that's why it's such an important topic for us. We also have been seeing that there's a huge increase in teacher shortages and burnout. These are due to a lot of things. Low pay is certainly a factor, but probably the biggest is increased stress and anxiety dealing with student behavioral challenges. Classroom sizes getting larger because of the shortages, and so they're dealing with more behavioral issues and problems. We're seeing a huge difficulty motivating students and a lack of connection with students. And what's interesting, these were things over the years we've been doing Why Try and training and working with kids and with educators. These are challenges predominantly that we would see in tier 2 and tier 3 populations. And now today they're showing up all over the place in tier 1. We're seeing a much broader impact of some of the challenges that we're seeing in motivating and connecting with students, all over the place. And there's been a significant increase in chronic absenteeism nationally. I just saw some interesting statistics on this. The pre-pandemic baseline, approximately 15% of U.S. K through 12 students were chronically absent before the pandemic, right? 2018, 2019 school years. No surprise, during pandemic, it went quite a bit higher. It surged up to 31% average, and then, so pretty much doubled. And then in many states, in many areas, it's even went higher. That was the average from the 21-22 school year. It's come down a little bit, but it's still really high. And there's pockets where we're seeing real problems with this, especially rural is having a much higher percentage. We're seeing it having a big impact with students in more of the tier 2 and tier 3 settings, students with disabilities, English learners, migrant youth are chronically absent at substantially higher rates, 50 to 60%. And so, we look at this and we think the root of these challenges isn't just academic struggle, it's the disconnection. It's students not feeling a connection with another student, another teacher, and not feeling that importance of the human relationship that we try and focus on. And so for us, the key is building those authentic and caring relationships between students and educators, starting super early on. I mean, what's Chris and Bruce, and Bruce, I just wanted to kind of have you maybe share a little bit. Why is it so important at the beginning of the school year that we focus on, before we're jumping into academics, that we focus on the relationship building side of things? Bruce, what do you think? Let's start you and then maybe have Christian
those 5
share.
things that you had from the survey, I think all 5 would be improved if we focused on authentic, caring relationships. And when students coming in, you have a variety of students, but a lot of students have anxiety. A lot of students just want to belong, but they don't feel comfortable or worried about coming. But I think it's the X factor to getting off to a good start, but it's also the X factor to everything you want to improve in your school, whether it's academics, attendance, whatever. And so uh, I think if you got to be attentional, but I think if you wanted to err, I would err on focusing on building strong relationships with your students. And that's something we did in our school. We tried to make it the students came, we wanted them to feel like, hey, we see you, we hear you, we're glad you're here, we need you, we care about you, we want you, and we're going to support you, kind of like we just saw in that basketball video, all the support that Jason received. So I think it is the key. It's the one thing that makes everything else work. I love the Y Try curriculum, teaching the skills of resilience, the source of resilience, but without what we call surrendering love relationship or building strong connections with students, it doesn't work. But I guess the magic sauce is relationships. We talk about it, but I don't know how often we really focus on it and intentionally do it.
I wanted to share something here, Christian, because I want to ask you this. So I was thinking about this. So this is one of the metaphors that we teach in Why Try, and it's centered around motivation and how we deal with challenges. And this came from a conversation Christian and I were having one day. I still remember we went to lunch. You'll laugh. It was at Hoagie Yogi on 9th East. It's a restaurant in our town that doesn't exist anymore. It was a long time ago. But I remember sitting down with Christian, and he was working in a community mental health setting at this point. We had created all these other visual metaphors that were part of the Why Try program and our visual approach that's kind of makes it different. And Christian would use these, walking kids through these in counseling and therapy. And then we had Bruce start using them in schools. But I remember him sitting down with me one day, and he was having success with these kids, making progress. And then he goes, it's so frustrating. I make progress with them, and then they go home. And it's like all that progress goes out the window. He's like, I can't get rid of their problems. And I remember laughing at him and saying, I may not be a social worker, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to get rid of their problems. And he's like, I know, it's just frustrating, but what can we do if we can't get rid of their problems? And so we started brainstorming, and it kind of came up with this metaphor. Do you want to just share briefly, Christian, like what this means? Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, the reality is many of these kids have many challenges. They have different type of suffering, different type of trauma, and that represents the storm clouds you see there, the challenge. And then you see, a lot of these times kids take these, whether it's poverty, abuse they've dealt with, different challenges, and they go into what we call that flood zone right there. You see that life raft, and just conversations I had with Hans and Bruce, and I'll probably have Bruce talk about it in a second, but you see that concept, those words, surrendering the one-up relationship, is really that life raft. And that's just where you let, children know they have value and worth, whether they succeed or whether they fail. And it's just so important at the beginning of the year to surrender that one-up relationship, to let kids know they have value. At the beginning of the year, one reason it's so important is because every classroom, I like to put it this way, is either kind of an in-law classroom or it's a family classroom. Kids know they're wanted, and if you know you're wanted, then your anxiety goes down. But sometimes if you're in a classroom, especially kids that grew up in poverty or have learning disabilities or in really abusive homes or homes with high trauma, when they walk into a classroom, they know really quick if that teacher wants them there. And I just tell teachers, man, just fake it till you make it, man. These kids will run through a wall for you if they know they're wanted. And Bruce is just, Bruce and Hans have the ability to kind of naturally do that. And so one of the first,
Not me.
yeah, Hans has to work on it.
Bruce does.
Yeah, Bruce naturally does it. But that's that surrendering the one up basically is just letting kids know, look, I'm going to put you in a position with me you can't lose. That's another way I like to define it. With Christian, you're not going to lose. With me, you're going to win in the relationship. And I think as adults, we should have enough self-esteem. We should be mature enough. We don't have to dominate a child. A child that's acting out. And sometimes when they're going to have a lot of attitude, the kid that's acting out has the most attitude. Sometimes it's hard to throw them a life raft, but if you throw it to them, man, they don't take it for granted. I find the kids that have the most attitude, the most anger, and sometimes the most anger towards me, if I can surrender that one up and throw them that life raft, they'll run through a wall for you. And then the first day I'm there, I look at water, water can flood and do damage, or water can be channeled through dams and create electricity. And the first dam there is we want kids to focus their self-talk on what they have control over. And going back what Hans was saying, sometimes the home life can't change. The home life isn't going to change. Sometimes the school's not going to change. Many of the environments, homeschool, their peers aren't going to change, but they got to put effort in what they control. They control whether they turn in their homework, whether they stay in school, whether they walk away from that fight or the gang or whatever the issue is. And then they gotta tap into what we call character and heart. In my own life, my brain would focus on what's wrong with me. I would beat myself up here cognitively, but really real motivation tends to take place right here. We actually know our heart has more neurons than our brain. Science now has figured that out. When we created this, me and Hans, years ago, it was more theoretical. Now there's actual data to show we really feel emotions in our gut, particularly in our gut, in our heart. That's not a debate anymore. And so we really believe, character and heart means you go through the motions. You don't give up out of respect for other people who care about you and people you care about. For me, it's my wife, Wendy, my kids, Cooper and Carson. It's being able to do this advocacy work across the country. And then the next dam is a passion, purpose, or interest. And really helping kids tap into their passion, purpose, or interest is really powerful. There's lots of techniques, and Bruce and Hans probably share a little bit more about how really understanding what kids' interests are and something unique about them surrenders the one-up relationship just naturally to just focus on what they're interested in, have them make their own decisions. But that third dam right there really ties to surrendering the one-up relationship. And then getting plugged into a support system. And that's letting kids know, these are the type of safe support systems, your parents, friends, family, people in school who will focus on what's right with you. And that's basically the motivation formula is we want them to be able to, just like water, you got to drink enough water to stay alive. But, too much water, I've been in places across this country. I was just driving through a town in Kentucky that just recently had huge flooding. I mean, it can kill you, flooding. We've seen this in Texas. And
I was just in Texas last week, and, it's tragic what they had there, but it's the reality that it can be the worst enemy, right? I think, Christian, so what you're saying here is that we can't get rid of these challenges, but if we can help them use the challenge, recognize there's energy in those emotions that we experience in the moment of the challenge and channel it, then these are the ways that we're trying to tap into helping those kids that we couldn't get rid of their problems, right?
Absolutely.
If we can't get rid of their problems, let's show them how to use the problem as motivation. That's kind of what this became. And then this is where I remember sitting with Christian and saying, there's still something missing. What do you do when they come into your office that gets them to listen to you and connect and, do the things you're trying to get them to do? Because I know, Christian and I have polar opposite backgrounds. I came from a very supportive home environment. I didn't have a lot of the struggles and challenges Christian had in his childhood and adolescent years. And I think one of the reasons why he's really good at connecting with these kids is because he has, lived life similar to what they're going through. He's been through their experiences. And so I was asking Christian, what do you do? Because I wanted to know. And then when I've worked with Bruce, I've taught so many groups and classes with kids. I think Christian helped kind of create this approach from a one-on-one standpoint, more kind of like, I'm working with a kid in a counseling one-on-one setting. How can I help them feel seen and feel important? And so I remember him describing to me, well, I let him sit in my chair. You want to share that real quick, Christian? Tell why you would do that.
Yeah. I'd always let them sit in my chair because, I first started working with kids. They would see the judge way up here, the probation officer. I'm working with the kids that are more at risk. They would see, the principal, the teacher, everybody's one up. They're one down. And so I thought, man, how can I symbolically communicate this? So I had a nice leather chair in my office, and I had a metal folding chair. The metal folding chair, I spray painted it. I dented it up. I put gum on it. I kicked out one of the legs. I actually balanced on 3 legs sometimes. And the kid would walk in, and they know they're in trouble. So they head right to the metal folding chair right before they sit in it. I say, no, you sit in a nice leather chair. They'll sit down in my leather chair. They'll spin around 2 or 3 times. And after about, 10 to 12 minutes, they'll say, hey, Mr. Moore, here's your chair back. Because they know I'm the clinical social worker. I write the letter to the judge or the probation officer or whatever. They know I should be in the nice leather chair.
You told me you'd call it the expert's chair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And say, and I'd say, you're the expert. You lived your life for the past 12, 13, 14, 15 years. You stay in the nice leather chair. Because when I asked that student to go back to class, turn in their homework, stop fighting, stop doing drugs, stop running away, whatever the issue was, it wasn't because of a magic program or anything, special. It was just the ability to surrender this one-up relationship. And you think about it, everybody listening, think about the people you most enjoy being around. It's the people who know your strengths, weaknesses. If you think about it, if you have a bad day or you're going through something difficult in your own life, the first person you're going to call is the person that's judging you the least. If life gets hard for you, the last friend you're calling is the one judging you the most. And that's just the human condition. Go ahead, Hans.
Yeah, no, that was your challenge, right? I mean, working with these kids, you needed them to know no matter what. Like I think the one thing Christian tried to point out to me, he said it has to be unconditional. You can't have it be dependent on whether they're going to do what you're trying to get them to do or whether their behavior is good or bad. It has to be unconditional so that they know no matter what, you're there for them and they're important, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And then, so Christian shared that with me and I said, that's pretty cool. I like what you're doing there. That makes sense. I want to be a fly on the wall and watch all these little things that Christian does to connect with these kids and help them feel valued and important. And so, for lack of a better term, that's what we started calling this approach, surrendering the one-up relationship. And I love that because I think it has some significant, understanding of what that means. And it is that we're recognizing that there are positional dynamics that we're experiencing in almost every setting that we're in, but especially in a school setting, in a classroom environment. You're the teacher, you're the educator, you have a position of power over the others. And kids they need to feel like, they have some voice, they have some choice, that they are seen and that they are valued and important. And then, working with Bruce as a school counselor and teaching classes and groups, I would love, just kind of sitting back and watch Bruce interact with the whole group of kids. Because some of the stuff Christian identified that are good ways to do this one-on-one don't always work great in a group environment. Like having a kid sit in your chair in a classroom environment isn't going to be as effective as it would be in a one-on-one setting. And so started looking at stuff that Bruce would do and other, really amazing teachers and educators. We started compiling a list of ideas on how we could, symbolically surrender that one-up relationship and communicate value and worth to our students because we care about them. One of the things we talk about a lot, one of our metaphors is a roller coaster called the reality ride. We talk about challenges at home, at school, with peers. We're talking about decisions and consequences with kids. And as part of the processing of this metaphor, we talk about challenges in different areas. And whenever we talk about challenges at school, the number one answer we always get is, my teachers don't like me. And I just was finishing a training this morning with some educators and whenever I cover this, I'll talk about that. I'll say, is that true? Do we not like them? And the answers are kind of funny. They're like, no, well, maybe, and I think all of us can probably think of a teacher in our experience as a student that made us wonder why they're in education. They didn't seem to really care. I think a lot of times we think of them as old school. It's my job to teach, it's your job to learn. Let's just, keep our distance, keep it like that. They don't really see the value of investing in the relationship, but, it's that relationship, that connection that I would love to watch with Bruce, working with kids in a group setting, how even when they don't have the same background or, they're very different, maybe their life experience is very different from Bruce. Bruce still was so good. I think you could put him with any group of kids, no matter where they come from, what their experiences are. And Bruce would very quickly just help them feel not just that I like them, but that I love them. and that, they're important to me. And, it was just so easy and I think just intuitive for you, Bruce. But Bruce and Christian, in many ways became the model for let's come up with some strategies, some specific things that somebody like me could do to be able to, form a connection with students and form those relationships. Anything you wanted to add there, Bruce? I'm kind of speaking for you, but.
Well, I mean, I think we're going toward some of the things we do, but one, it's just kind of you got to make that a intentional, something you really believe. You can't, kids can see through you if you're not genuine. But we do a lot of little things. I mean, in any group or class, whoever was teaching with me or just myself, I'd always greet them at the door, give them a high five or a knuckle. If I'd kind of find out if they like touch. If they did touch, I'd respect that, not touch. But then comment and talk about something going on in their life or whatever, but really pay attention to them. And then I truly tried to know their name. I think that's one of our things is to call them by name. Sometimes I give a nickname if they had a nickname they liked. And then I used a little, if I was really struggling to reach a student, and I'd say, if I mispronounce your name, I'm going to bring your favorite candy bar next class. And just to me, sometimes I just mispronounce names just because I mispronounce names. But occasionally I mispronounce on purpose. So I wanted to have a stronger connection. They say, hey, I like Twix or whatever. And so the very next day, if we had class, I'd have their candy bar. They'd be shocked that I brought it. But it's sent a message that I cared about them. Just that simple thing, knowing their name and greeting them. But there's a lot of it. We're going to talk about some strategies in a minute. I'll add some more to those.
I think we do so much when we hear this from educators. I don't think, we're talking about something that's a mystery. I think we understand that relationships are important. We could talk about why they're important a lot. This was an article from Education Week last year that came out, and it was sharing just the research on positive teacher-student relationships and their impact on students. And it said, kind of analyzing 46 different education studies, all of them were focusing on relationships. It found that strong teacher-student relationships are linked in short and long term to improvements across nearly every metrics that schools value. Higher academic engagement, better attendance, improved grades, fewer disruptive behaviors and suspensions, and lower dropout rates. So it's clear, like you were saying, Bruce, if we start with the relationship at the beginning of the school year, all those other challenges are going to be impacted by us making a connection, right? And then, the impact of positive relationships on teachers is equally important, because we talk about the problem that there's a huge shortage of teachers and there's a lot of burnout and frustration. And, in another study in that same Education Week article, it said, that teachers' relationships with students was the best predictor of how much a teacher experienced joy versus anxiety in class. And I think that's one of the things that I always love about working with Christian and Bruce in settings where you're working with kids, that they're trying to help them, feel joy, just to have a positive feeling when they're with them and they're in their presence. They want them to feel good. And it's like Christian saying, you don't want to be around people that are your critics. You want to be around the people that don't, that aren't going to criticize you, that make you feel good when you're around them, that build you up, right?
And I would just add one thing. When you're the teacher, counselor, administrator, whoever is doing that, you're surrendering the one up to them, but it kind of comes back to you. Like I just said in that, I couldn't wait to go to school because I was so excited about how are we going to send that message and make that connection. And when you do it, it takes away, like it said, your anxiety, your stress. You have a lot more enjoyment and value in your career and whatever your setting is, what your role is. And it's two ways. And that's what's so powerful about it. If we can have a whole school of teachers really focusing on that, and the students are getting that clear message, man, that culture in that school is going to take off. It's going to be amazing.
So we want to share with you just some of our favorite strategies and just a few tips and things that could help. We've got, these huge lists, and if you're interested in more information and more of these strategies, I'll give you information at the end here. I recommend you schedule a demo with one of our program directors, and they can show you either the Y-Try program or our leader toolkit, which is all centered around relationship building, and staff development resources for helping staff build those relationships. But we're going to share these with you at the end of the webinar today. But we wanted to just kind of go through and share a couple strategies that can be really good for starting out the school year, building a connection and building a relationship. One of my favorites, Bruce, values continuum. I've got it here. So let's just try this with you all just for a second. I'm going to give you two choices, and I'd like you in the chat window, if you can, just tell us where you are based on the number that you see on the screen. You're either like far left, far right, or somewhere closer to the middle. And so just give us a number, and then maybe just a word or two why you are where you are. Okay, so I'm going to give you two choices. We call this the values continuum. When I do this with kids in a live setting, we'll usually, Bruce will put a big piece of tape across the floor at a classroom setting and then mark it in the middle, set kind of a center line for this, and then we'll give them two choices. So first one, this is a tough one, I know, for all of you, especially coming back into a school year. If you could go on vacation again right now, just summer starting over, and money's no object, would you rather go to the mountains or go to the beach? Where do you see yourself on that continuum, on that spectrum? Give us a number in the chat window, and then maybe a word or two why you prefer the beach or why you prefer the mountains.
And if you're kind of around 5 or 6, that maybe means you're struggling. Maybe you like both or dislike both, depending on what it is. But 1 means you really like the mountains, and 10 means you really like the beach.
Yeah, we got some good span here. Usually with students, we try and make them stand for something. I'll say, the only rule I have is you can't be a fence sitter. You can't stand right on the line. You got to pick a side. But I love these. So we got a bunch coming in. You've got a few that are talking about beaches because you love hot weather, mountains because you like hiking and it's cooler, mountains because of the isolation and beauty, a little bit close to the middle. I liked my trip to Montana this summer, but I love the beach. Grant, you said beach because you haven't been in a while. Far side on the beach because it's peaceful and relaxing. Beach. Oh boy, a lot of beach ones. Beauty of nature, we're getting on the mountainside here because I live in the mountains, so beach is my favorite place. 2, I just love nature, not sand. That's when I hear a lot, I don't like sand. So I don't know, Christian, where would you be?
Definitely in the mountains.
You on the mountainside?
Yeah.
Bruce, where would you be?
I'm kind of a sense center because I love the beach, but I live in the mountains and hike every day in the mountains. I go on a hike every morning. So I would probably be a 5 or maybe a 6. I like for vacation to go to the beach.
Yeah.
But I like them both. So I'm kind of in the middle.
This picture right here this is our home. We are all sitting in an office that's right at the foot of this mountain. And so I'm torn. I'm like kind of like you, Chris or Bruce. I love the mountains, and I love them in the winter and the summer. But I think if I was going on vacation, because this is what I have all the time, I'd probably pick the beach. So I'm probably just a little over on the 6 or 7 side here.
And I can't understand why Grant Sparks doesn't come out here so I can give him a tour of all these things. But anyway, we'll work on that another time.
Yeah. If any of you want to come to visit us here in Utah and come to a training here in person, we would invite you to come. All right. Let's do just a couple more here. Which do you prefer, small sporty car or an SUV? Give us a quick answer in the chat window here. Got some 10s, 9s, size matters, more practical, 8s, 10, 6, lean big because of space.
Wow, interesting.
6 just depends on where I'm going. SUV safety 7. I haven't even seen one yet for sports cars yet.
This is with the youth, though. You'd be on the left side a lot,
Oh, I don't know. I think it's pretty still spread.
probably about spread out.
I think you do still. In general, most populations I do this with, I see more on the SUV big side, but I still see some. Oh, Catherine, way to go. Way to stand alone out there. Catherine's a 3. She's on the small.
Catherine, I'm on a 1 myself. Catherine.
Size capacity. So awesome. Let's do just one. We'll just do one more here real quick. I'll just kind of share another example here. Which do you prefer? Hamburgers or pizza? Best hamburger you've ever had versus the best pizza you've ever had. Where would you put yourself?
Well,
Maybe as you put next to your number, what's the best that you've had? Best hamburger or best pizza? If you're voting for one side or the other. Brenda's like 5'6", love both, can't decide. Not as polarizing on this one. You're a little more closer to the middle, I think. It's hard sometimes. Rodney said, I used to run a pizza place. Done. He's on the burger side. Pizza is burned out.
that's funny.
I love pizza, but I do like burgers. Veggie, it's easier to do veggie on the pizza side. Depends on my mood. I can always eat pizza. I don't know. Where would you be on this, Christian? You're a pizza guy, I think.
Pizza, 10 pizza, man.
Are you 10 pizza? I'm not surprised. That's not a surprise. Bruce, where are you?
I like them both, but I can have a burger every day and be happy. So I did some burger side.
We made some smash burgers at my home last night, and they were dang good. So I'm torn. The fries sway me a little bit, but I'm still probably a little bit on the pizza side. I like to make pizza at home. Good New York pizza too. Oh, Margaret, you're right. That's tough. So with this, we'll do. You guys don't have to do this. We'll just compare some things. Dogs versus cats. That always gets a huge, strong response. With kids, sometimes we'll do things like gaming consoles, DC versus Marvel, different video games, sports. NFL versus NBA, TV shows, Star Wars versus Star Trek. Social media platforms, which do you prefer? Artists, you got Drake and Kendrick battle going on here. Sometimes we'll talk about what's more important, be smart or work hard. Where do you think most of your students will say? In my experience, they almost always will say be smart, and I think we all feel strongly that it's the work hard. And we have lessons that we teach the importance of, hard work and why it's so important. This one is an interesting. I just out of curiosity, where would you put yourselves on this? Not which do you prefer, by the way, which is more dangerous? Are you on the marijuana side or the alcohol side? Which is more dangerous? And it's probably specifically for youth, especially. Got a lot on the alcohol side.
Man, there's some smart people.
Yeah.
It just depends on how they are both used. There you go.
Yeah.
Isha.
I did a training this morning and we did this, and I had a pretty mixed group. Had actually a lot on the marijuana side and a lot on the alcohol side, and a lot of good arguments for both sides. I think because marijuana, some things people said, because marijuana is perceived as it's natural and it's used for, there's definitely really compelling arguments for using it for some medicinal purposes that kids' perception is it's safe. And there's been some really scary studies on the impact of THC and marijuana on brain development with kids, where it can cause a lot of harm. I know I saw an article recently that was talking about how much stronger marijuana is today than it was even a decade ago. That it's kind of been genetically engineered to be stronger. And probably the biggest concern that people say is, it's just not regulated enough. And so it could be laced with, dangerous things like, fentanyl or something else that could be very dangerous. Alcohol, it's hard to argue the sheer volume of statistics on the alcohol side of things. deaths associated with alcohol in some form of, DUI or other impairment. The addictive nature of alcohol for many people is really tough, and also equally dangerous for, developing brains and children to get involved in things like that. And so I think it's a good argument, but I like, sometimes we talk about things that are a little bit more serious, and we get a little back and forth going through. But one of the great things about this, you can kind of share where you are. Your students can share some things about them. You'll have students that have strong personalities that will be more vocal, students that are very shy. They can communicate just by the way they move back and forth. I mean, you've done this a lot with Bruce. What do you feel is like, what do you get from this when you do this with kids?
Well, one at first, if you're starting this out early in the year, it gives them a chance to voice their opinion or what they feel or think. And I have a little notepad, and I'll write things down of the different choices, and then I can bring it up to them. And they say it was sports, and I found someone raised his hand they love basketball or the NBA. Then I'll connect on that, or they like a certain type of music, and so it's just, and also getting, and you're not going to have every student comment, but you give them a chance after you do this. We usually do this when they're walking on the tape or in the ring, moving up and down the room. But, who would like to comment on this? Or at least call upon me. Where did you stand? And why did you feel that way? But just gives them a chance to have a little bit of voice, open up, and for you to share and to start having fun dialogue. And then I always say when we do this, we're going to agree we're not going to all be the same place, and we may not all feel the same way, but we're going to respect each other's value, what each other's opinion and what they think. So it's a good way to start some good interaction.
Kind of establishes that environment that's, what we want. We want to try and create a respectful environment, right?
Exactly.
Have you ever done this one, Bruce?
Yes. With educators, or
Have you ever done it with students?
I've done with kids a lot too. You say, how do you feel that our school we're educating you? Are we doing a good job of educating you or a bad job? And you learn a lot when you hear that. Even though that sometimes it may not be accurate, it's their perception, but it gives you a feel of how they feel about school and their education. I think it's a good one to do. And I do it also when our trainings, just to see what the teachers and counselors, what they're thinking. Are we doing in our school a good job, or maybe not? We could do a little bit better job. But anyway, that's a good one. Usually a lot of talk and interaction back and forth on that one.
Christian, I think I remember one of your strategies for strengthening the one up was kind of focusing on, look, you're my boss. I work for you. You're saying that to the kid because your job as a therapist was to help them. And we're always labeling and judging them and assessing them, but we don't often let them do the same to us. Why would you do that?
To not let them say that one more time. The question.
I mean, what you would say, you're my boss. I work for you.
Yeah.
Why would you, like, you intuitively were doing that. What was your, what were you wanting them to know?
Yeah. Well, one, change is going to happen. It's going to be them anyhow. So I just want to communicate the message to them that they're the boss. Does that make sense? Because I can't really change their life. So that's one big part of it. And then just to communicate to them, hey, I really do work for you. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not being paid to be with me. I'm being paid to be with them. So does that make sense? I am. But
That's a good point.
And the other thing I want to say on this picture right here, I hope all the teachers out there, I just was with 600 teachers 2 days ago. And I talked to several teachers that are hard on themselves. And I tell you what, the first thing we need to do as teachers, as educators, is to surrender the one-up relationship to ourselves, give ourselves grace. I give everybody a waiver. Everybody should put a 1 on this. You did a good job educating, because we got being an educator is the hardest job on this planet. And you guys are doing it. And I know, it can be on that spectrum there, 1 through 10. But man, teachers really need to give themselves grace, man. Every other industry, man, when people mess up, they don't beat themselves up, but at that level. And so, we got to give ourselves grace as educators, and everybody in my earshot, you definitely get it number 1.
It's interesting. I doing this with kids, and I've done this one. I feel like they're even when they themselves are struggling, a lot of times I'll see a kid say, I think we're doing pretty good, you're doing pretty good, and they'll reference like a certain teacher that they have that they say, they really care. I'm not doing very well, but they care. I can tell they care. And I think it's so, it's not, asking this question isn't really, that challenging to put ourselves out there and be vulnerable and see what they say. Some of them will maybe vent or say, it's boring, or I don't understand why, they struggle with school a little bit, and they may not like the way that they're being, forced to do certain things. But for the most part, my experience, students are pretty soft on this. But just the fact that we ask this question and let them know, hey, we're always, grading our students. I hope, as we're going through, that you guys can give me a grade and let me know what I can do to be better and how I can help, make this a better experience for you. Bruce and I, when we would teach classes of kids, we would always start off and say our purpose is we want to help students enjoy school more, and we want to see everybody improve. That was basically it. This is why we teach, why try. We're just telling them, specifically, we just want to help you enjoy this more and see everybody improve. And, if we're not doing a good job and they're not enjoying school, or they're not feeling some level of passion or interest and engagement in what we're doing, then we're not helping them see the relevance, and we're not doing our job in helping them connect. And so I hope we can get feedback from them, and that we're open to allowing them to give us some feedback. So this is a great activity. We have the instructions for this we're going to share with you. So if you want to try this with your students, if you are a version of this, if you like this, this is one of my favorite things, because I think few things give me a better snapshot on who they are, learning about their likes, dislikes, their passions, and some of the things that they love. Anything else you want to say about that, Bruce?
Yeah, just one example. I had a young man by the name of Eric, and we did this activity in our Y-Tri group at the start of the school year, and he shared something that he had a passion for hockey. I wrote it down, and it was just when we were having the group activity, and so his mom came in about 2 or 3 weeks later, said his dad had died and of cancer, and that he was really struggling. And I said, well, he said he liked hockey. She said, yeah, he's on a hockey club team. So I wrote that down. And a little later, when the season started, I reached out to her. I said, I don't want you letting him know, but just tell me when he's playing. And he was playing on a club team down at Seven Peaks, where we had the Olympics, where we're from. And so I got a schedule, and I showed up. And he was struggling in school and had a hard time attending. When I showed up at the end of the game, they won, and he was the goalie. And he skated over to the side of the rink. And he said, Mr. B, what are you doing here? You got a son or someone playing? I said, yeah, I'm here to watch someone I care about. Well, which player is it? And I looked at him and I said, Eric, it's you. I came to watch you. And from that time forward, we had a relationship, and he started to improve, what we just talked about. He started to work harder on school. We had a real connection. His dad passed away, but I became kind of a mentor and looked out for him. But it came from doing this simple activity. That's what it can be a lot more powerful than you think if you just, pay attention to what students are saying and how they're responding. But I love that story. And he turned out to graduate on time. A lot of good things happened with Eric. Anyway.
I love it. It's a perfect example of that. So we have some resources we want to share with you. These are some of our strategies for strengthening one up. We've got 5 of them that we're going to share with you, and we'll have this in a printable document that we'll share with you here at the end. Just wanted to kind of go through them real quick. Bruce, you want to explain this one?
Yeah, this one is kind of an opportunity. If you disclose a little about you and they get to know you better, they feel more comfortable reaching out to you. And then later on, I do this with all the students, but this is like the first day or two in a class or a group. I call it 2 truths and a lie, or false and not a lie, but 3 experiences, 2 that you've actually done and 1 that you haven't. And you have some fun, and they learn a little about you. You make them kind of unique. Here's the ones I use. I won't do it and ask for a vote, but this one I've chosen quite often. There are 2 of these are true. I'm going to share with you. One's the false. So I'm going to throw it out to you real fast. I fought bulls in Mexico. That's one. Number two, I was in a live dance group on live TV for 8 weeks. And three, I jumped off Rainbow Bridge. It's at Lake Powell. It's in a big lake that covers a lot of miles between Utah and Arizona. It's awesome. It's kind of like the Grand Canyon canyons, but they have a kind of an arch. And I bungee jumped off the Rainbow Bridge. Two of those are true. One is false. I won't ask the response because we got started late, but I'll tell you but I usually last year students, I'll have some Jolly Ranchers if they get the two, if they pick out the one that's false and make it it'll be some fun. But fighting bulls, I'll have a drum roll and they'll say I'll ask how many think that's true and or false. Well, I just say, well, tell me what if you think it's false. How many think fighting bulls is false? They'll raise their hands or mark it down false, or how many think dancing in a live dance group, and then how many think bungee jumping is false. Anyway, then I do a drum roll and tell them the actual thing. Well, for you here, I won't clarify all this, but I did fight bulls in Mexico. It was at arena. I paid a fee and had a matador uniform on with music. It was pretty cool. The little baby cat bulls came out and then got the bull to go through my cape. I was in a live dance group on live TV. That's a long story, but not a great dancer, but it was
If you
awesome.
knew him personally, you would really question that one.
Yeah. And I didn't want to do that. That was a whole story. We won't go into that. But then the third one, I bungee jumped before, but I don't know if you can even bungee jump off Rainbow Bridge.
No,
but
you could not, definitely.
Yeah, that
Probably
would
be arrested if you
that was
tried.
false.
Yeah, so that's not the true one.
All
So
right,
that one's good. It's a fun one just because, like you said, just helps them get to know you, and then inviting them to do
Yeah.
this in the future can be a good thing to help us get to know them. But it's a way for us to make a personal connection and kind of make a game of it. Um, Another one is a music playlist. Create a class playlist made up of songs submitted by your students. These can be upbeat songs to play during work time or music they feel has special meaning to them. If you want to go deeper, you can ask them to submit a song that represents who they are or something that's influenced them in some way, and this can lead to meaningful conversations about lyrics and why the song matters. Playing student-selected music communicates that their voices matter and that the classroom belongs to them as much as it belongs to you. Another one that we have on our list that's a good one, I'm not perfect. Look for opportunities to share your own mistakes with your students. This could be something small, like misplacing a paper, something more personal, like a time you failed something important. Talk openly about feelings and emotions you experienced in that moment and how you work through them. Students often feel like they are the only ones who make mistakes or feel embarrassed, and hearing you admit your own struggles helps normalize those experiences. It communicates that you're human, relatable, and safe to talk to when they mess up. Bruce, you have anything on this one, Christian?
Yeah, I was going to say, man, I was just seeing a lot of success with this one. And my own kids, when they're in school, the teachers they liked the most were the teachers that weren't perfect. My son now, who just graduated from high school, he had a teacher like 2 years ago that literally was having a bad day, and he taught the class from under his desk. I always thought that was and my son Carson says that's his favorite teacher, and the teacher was vulnerable. Now, you've got to be appropriate, of course, on your level of vulnerability. But I'm just telling you, this one, you want to really surrender the one up and motivate students, and it really creates a safe environment in the classroom when I've seen it done. So I'll be quiet.
No, I love that. I love that. In fact, I was just gonna say, I've literally witnessed Bruce do this. It's one of the things that I've watched him do with groups of kids where he intentionally messes up on things so that they can correct him and so that they feel safe. And I think it's brilliant. Like I watch it and just go, oh my gosh, he did that on purpose. I know he did that on purpose,
I occasionally did that in training too, because I wanted those we were training to know you don't have to be perfect in training. This one, can I comment on this one?
Yeah, go for it.
We did this at my high school, Pleasant Grove High School. We created a card as counselors, had our names on it, and it had what alphabet we had that if you needed help, or you could reach out to any one of us. And we had how they could reach us and what, how to go about that. And we call it a card that they could, use anytime that they were stressed out or needed help or stuff was they had real major challenges or just wanted to be some good advice or counsel. But on the other side of the card, we had 5 steps to managing stress. Then we had 5 steps to problem solving, which was jumping hurdles. And that's one word. And then we had There was just down in the bottom, we have what's called it's a fast food place called the Purple Turtle. They could take that card that we gave them and get a free ice cream cone at Purple Turtle. But a lot of the kids, they loved that. They put it in their wallet or their purse, and they made sure they kept onto it. But it was our way of saying, hey, we care about you. We're here to support you, believe in you, and be there for you. So I love the business card. They're plastic. We kind of made them, we made a lot of them. We made one for every student. But that was it was a powerful thing, and that sent a message that we really did care about them.
I like that. It's a good one. This is the last one, hallmark moment. This is just one where, at some point during the school year or semester, make it a goal to give each student a short handwritten note recognizing something specific and positive about them. And it could be a recent success, a kind thing they did for someone, a strength you've noticed in them. Hand it to them privately or leave it somewhere where they'll find it. And many students will hold on to these notes for a long time. It means a lot to them when you do it in kind of a note form. I think you can be more sincere when you do a note than if you say something, verbally to them that might make them feel uncomfortable or embarrassed or something. And so those who don't often receive positive personal messages from adults in their lives, it can make a big difference. This strategy takes only a few minutes, but has an impact that lasts far beyond the school year. And then we wanted to also share with you just 5 ways to start the year with intentional relationship building. And so these were just a couple of things that are just good foundational things. So you could try that values continuum as an activity working with a group. You could try any of these surrender the one-up strategies, but these are some really simple things. And Bruce was talking about this one originally. Know every student's name and use it often. If you can, greet them by name at the door, use their names during class, in the hallway. It's a small act, but it has a big impact. Anything you want to say on this one, Bruce?
There's a lot of research that shows that the impact it can have. And I have stories, and I think we're out of time, but a young lady came in, gave me a gift and said, thanks for saving my life. Then she was new to our school. And I said, what's your name? And I knew her first name. But anyway, her family had a lot of challenges. She'd moved a lot. She was ready to drop out of school, and she was starting new again. This is about the 10th time they'd moved. And that's not an exaggeration. They moved like crazy. And but I knew her name, and every time I saw her in the hall, I'd call her name out, and I'd give her a high five and say, hey, and just say, have a great day. She'd give me a high five back. And then she gave me this beautiful gift, and I said, why did you, and I couldn't figure out why. It was such a nice gift. It was jewelry, and I won't go into it, but I got her in, and I said, and I didn't know her last name, so it took quite a bit to figure out how to get in. She wasn't in her class, and I wasn't her sinus counselor. I said, I just want to know why you gave me that gift. And she said, I was thinking school wasn't worth it, life wasn't worth it, but you gave me a high fives 3 or 4 days in a row. And one of those days you said, I'm so glad you're here. We need you. She said that changed everything for her. And so sometimes it's just a simple little thing, but it made a huge difference in her name. Her name was Angela. And I can't even think of her last name now, but that was powerful to me, how important it is to know student by name and acknowledge them that they do matter.
I think of how many educators we've worked with over the years that have come from tough backgrounds. I mean, a lot they're similar to you, Christian, that have come from really tough, challenging childhood and adolescent experiences. And almost everyone will have a story of a teacher or counselor or somebody that helped them. And it was like not a big deal, like you're just saying there, Bruce, something you're just kind of doing naturally, but that they were just there for them at a key moment when they needed to hear that. Having that caring adult in a key moment made just such a huge difference for them. Like I think of our buddy Early King. He talks about that a lot. There was one key teacher that gave him some confidence, and now he's got 2 master's degrees, and he's an administrator, and just overcame very difficult things in his childhood, and it was hugely impacted by just this one adult and a small act of kindness that they had. 2x10 challenge. Spend 2 minutes a day for 10 consecutive school days having a non-academic conversation with a student who may be harder to connect with. That's a real intentional thing, right? Like that's not, just I'm intuitively doing some of these things. That's like saying I'm going to make a plan where I'm going to intentionally try and find a student that is harder to connect with. And I'm just going to spend 2 minutes and try and connect with them outside of an academic conversation. And, do that for 10 consecutive school days right at the beginning of the school year. I think that will go so far. Just it's such a great, simple suggestion, but something that would make a big difference. Student spotlights. Begin a class by sharing something positive about a student, an accomplishment, a strength, or a unique interest. Invite them to share something they're proud of. And then notice and comment. If you notice new shoes, a different hairstyle, or a shirt with their favorite band, say something. It shows you're paying attention and that you care. And then one last one, just another way to start with intentional relationship building, ask for advice. Give students a real choice in something that matters to them, like what music to play before class, how to set up the room, or which warm-up activity you're going to do. Maybe you give them a couple choices of something that we're going to do there. Anything you guys want to add to those?
Yeah, just add to this one. This is one of my other ones. It's one of my favorite ones. I was talking to a teacher in Kentucky the other day, and one way they do this is they have the students, share this. Okay, this is the topic. We have these 3 topics we can do today. Like, for example, the Civil War. What was the cause of the Civil War? What was the aftermath of the Civil War? And they'll choose, which they want to study. The other thing this teacher was doing, I thought was really creative around this one, is they were using AI. They were like, okay, this is the lesson plan. I'm going to give you 10 minutes and everybody's going to see, you're going to use AI and see who can come up with the best lesson plan. And then everybody can spend, they'll come up with 4 or 5 sentences why they think their lesson plan will be the best. And then the teacher picks which one. And so it's just one way of incorporating AI. Now, at the students' fingertips, they can access evidence-based, material to share lesson plans and stuff. And so there's some really creative ways now that you can do this, ask for advice now with AI as well. That's a long job, but we'll probably come up with the top 10 ways to use AI in surrendering the one-up relationship here in the next 6 months. You can look for that. Hans is going to put that together.
Hey, Hans, I know our time's short, so I'm not going to share. I just want to know in our curriculum, we have close to 70 strategies like some of these we were just shared that are powerful. They're amazing. Some are very simple, really simple. And their strategies are centered on student connection, student-centered, and student empowerment. But I think it's just right under 70 specific strategies, which go such a long ways to making difference in students' lives. As long as it needs to match your belief, though, what you believe and feel. It's got to be genuine and sincere.
We also have, just some really great resources that we use in our leader toolkit. And so if you're interested in just more like if you're interested in how you could help your students by engaging and building relationships, and you've never seen the Y Tribe program, I'd encourage you to, just schedule a demo. We'll show you what it is and how it works, and you can get access to a lot more of these tools and resources. Similarly, if you're, an administrator, somebody working with, and you're trying to figure out how to help your staff be better at this, schedule a demo for our transformational leader toolkit, and we can show you how this can help you provide resources to build capacity in working with your staff through, pre-built workshops and things that we have to all focused on relationship building and surrendering the one-up relationship, not just why it's important, but how to do it. And this little QR code here will take you to a page that will have resources of everything that we're talking about here. So we've got a printout for today that shares all the things we just shared with you, along with the instructions for that activity, the values continuum, that are some great resources to use starting out the school year here. And then I just wanted to share one last story of my own. I was doing some training just 2 weeks ago. I was in Indiana, and I was talking with a principal there in this kind of a smaller rural district, and we were talking about surrendering the one-up relationship. And she shared with me that they just had done this with their staff, and I thought it was such a great idea. I loved it. They looked at the list of all their students, and then they got their staff, and they had kind of a picture of every student on a huge board, and they had all their staff go through and mark next to any of the students where they feel that they have a personal connection with that student. If they know that student kind of independent of, you know, a classroom academic subject or material, but more like they have a personal connection. They know personal things about them, and the student knows them. And so it's two-way. It's not just a one-way thing. It's a two-way thing. And she said, we had several students that had multiple staff members that had marked next to them that they had a good relationship with them. Some students that maybe only had one staff member that had a good connection with them. And then a list of students that didn't have a mark next to their name, didn't have a staff member that felt that they had a personal connection with them. And she said, we sat there, and every member of our staff volunteered for all those students that didn't, that they didn't feel had a connection, that nobody had a connection with them, that they were going to be intentional about focusing on that student and building a personal connection with them, so that there wasn't one student in the school that wasn't having an existing, important relationship with one of the staff members at least. And I thought that's the great thing. It's great that she said it was a really powerful exercise just to see them all and to recognize that there were a decent amount of them that did not have a meaningful connection with a member of the staff. And she said, we didn't even have to ask them to do it. They just volunteered right away. I'll pick this one. I'll do this one. I'll do this one. Because when they saw that, they thought, this can't be. We can't have a kid come to our school and not have a meaningful relationship with one of us. And so, I love that. I think that's so important.
I did too. It's great.
Awesome.
Any closing remarks? Anything, Christian?
Yeah, I think with just surrendering the one up, I think most people in our earshot are already doing it. It just kind of formalizes it a little bit more. And yeah, it's just so important to stay natural with it, be unconditional, and it makes the school year. I challenge everyone to try to do it a little bit more. If you're already doing it, do it a little bit more this coming up school year, and I promise you'll have a way better school year as you increase it. And I just want to thank you guys. I know we went a little long here, but I want to thank you.
We started late too.
Yeah, we started late, but thank you for staying on this long. So we still have the vast majority have stayed on, and we don't take that for granted. And you guys are my heroes, man. Thanks for fighting the fight. It's the most important fight in the world. And hopefully these are some tools. And you guys were sharing very little. I mean, this is surrender the one up is just one component of very broad curriculum. We have a curriculum on resilience. When I was in Kentucky the other day, they're looking at having a mentoring program in combination with surrendering the one up, in combination with resilience. And if you're interested in resilience, you can, just go to that code there, take a picture of that, and let us know you're interested in. I'll give you a free resilience demo if you want a demo on resilience, the book, The Resilience Breakthrough. We'll do a free little webinar on that. If anybody's interested in that, just you can put that in the text there, and we'd love to help you. Thanks.
Yeah, somebody says there a link we can get for what's in the QR code. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I'll grab it and share it with you. Go ahead, Bruce. Anything else you want to say?
Now it's time to close. Just that. Thank you for being here. And if you truly want to make a difference in a young person's life, it's in the relationship. That's where it begins. And then I, as a coach, I wanted students to run through the wall for me, not be scared because I yelled and screamed and kind of was punitive. I wanted them to have a relationship where they said, I know Coach B really cares about me, and they really want to put effort. And the same thing in the classroom. Anyway, thank you for being here and for what you do. We truly appreciate you being here today.